Hello and welcome to the Fatboy Show, which I know is your favorite show in the entire universe. Your number one show, in fact. Coming to you from RX Radio, and here on the Fatboy Show, as you know, we like to have all kinds of amazing conversations. And speaking of those conversations, today I am happy to introduce to you someone I've known for many, many years. She's a very powerful lady. Don't be fooled by her small frame and her calmness. She carries a ball of fire within her chest, and depending on if you say something she disagrees with, she will unleash a barrage of a firestorm on you like you've never seen. Hi, Lindsey.
No, that's right. Yep.
Good to have you here, Lindsey Kukunda.
Yeah, it's so great to be here with you again.
Yeah, so I hope that was a good introduction. It let people know exactly what can be expected.
Yes, if someone says things that annoy me, I shall respond.
Okay, so how best to describe you in terms of what you do and who you are? Maybe I'll just let you speak for yourself.
I am a human rights activist across the board. I'm also an animal rights activist. I rescue dogs several times a year.
All right.
Literally. I'm also a journalist and a writer. The two I consider different because when I'm writing, I don't necessarily write for news. It can be fiction, and I've been doing that for a very, very long time. So I think that my field would be media relations, because that covers what I do in human rights. It covers what I do with my writing. So media practitioning. Yeah, generally.
Okay.
Yes.
So obviously that means you would be required to soak in the things that you are seeing happening in the world around you and in the society and the community around you, and to, I guess, bring that information to that same community or even to the rest of the world to let them know what's going on. And Uganda is one place where there certainly is a lot going on. So as a journalist, I'm sure you've been very busy. And as a human rights activist and journalist, I'm sure there's been many issues that perhaps have been of concern to you that you've wanted to speak on, and I'm guessing you've written about. I do follow you on social media, and I do see your various complaints about some of the injustices you see. Hey, you are a hard person to ignore.
Well, thank you.
So one of the most, I guess the most prominent current issue right now is the issue of the anti-homosexuality bill, which you have been very vocal against. Can you tell us why you're against the anti-homosexuality bill?
One, because it's completely unprovoked. I have no idea where it came from. Like if we look at the history of the bill, I mean, did someone see two men kissing on the road? Did someone do this? Why all of a sudden is there this national outrage against something which was not provoked at all?
It would seem, though, that one of the triggering events, because it's rarely ever one thing, but the one event seemed to be the scandal surrounding alleged defilement of a boy in Budo by a teacher. And sort of that reawakened people's anti-homosexuality sentiments.
Yes.
And of course, politicians, being opportunistic people, decided to ride on that new controversy, the wave of controversy.
Yes.
Turned it into a bill and got it passed.
Unfortunately, yes. What happened was tragic. It was really, really tragic to that child. I just wish that the way they reacted would be the same way they reacted when it happens to the female students in the same school.
Of which many, many more female students around the country really are victims of assault and defilement.
Yeah, assault, defilement, rape. It's really, really tragic. And at least I like that people now don't want minors. They now realize exactly that this is a minor. This should not happen to a minor. And I'm hoping that it will ride off into the girl child as well.
Do you think we've made any progress in that regard? Is there a greater appreciation of the sanctity of a girl child's body?
No. And I think that it's getting worse.
You think it's getting worse?
Yes, I think it's getting worse.
So much has been, so much time, energy, resources have been invested in trying to educate the public about the importance of the girl child. So how come that's had no effect?
I didn't say it has had no effect. I've said that I think it's getting worse because there is now a pushback against that movement.
Okay.
Nowadays, you will see more and more shows dedicated to women should know their place. It's ridiculous that we are now actually having those conversations. Should women kneel? When a woman comes home late at night, should she serve him food? These are conversations that we are having today, which we should not be having anymore.
You think we should have left them in the 90s at the latest?
I mean, hey, the 1950s want you back. They have no business.
So do you think there's no place for people to express sentiments? Because obviously, if you're speaking of a pushback, I would think you would mean that it's coming from men who are resisting many of the social changes that have come with the women's movement and women's rights movement. And they seem to be the ones resisting a woman's new role in society and instead wanting the old roles reinstated. And so that is then what becomes the subject of these talk shows you're speaking of.
Yes.
Where they say women should do this, women should do that.
Yes.
And on those programs are usually very entertaining, which is perhaps why they're popular. There'll be a woman on the other side saying, no, I won't do that. No, I won't. And some man will be there saying, yes, you should. And, people enjoy it. But at the same time, in your mind, it compromises the progress women have and strides that women have made.
To me, it means that men will do everything possible to fight against this, this growth, against this independence that women now have, against this financial strength that women now have. If you go to Twitter, there's a gentleman, Godfrey Kutesa, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he teaches boys how to be traditional. Like, I wish that the way girls are being raised, you see, no one is preparing boys for the girls that are being raised today. So girls are being raised to be, to work hard. They're being raised to own property. They are inheriting property, which was unheard of several years ago. But boys are not being prepared for that. And it alarms me when I see men who want to help men, but are telling men, your role is supposed to be traditional. And I swear that is what I am seeing.
Let me ask you this, is there room for personal choice in this matter? Let's say a man decides, I hear the feminist perspective, the women's rights perspective, and if that is the life you wish on yourself, fantastic. Let us hope you find a man that can accommodate your aspirations in view of gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
However, me, I'm old school, and thus I will publicly announce that I wish to have a woman who is comfortable with my views and is ready to come on board with my understanding of gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are women who are quite happy to fulfill that role.
Yes.
And so if there is a meeting of minds, why not just let them run off to the sunset together, and then the more independent-minded women can find the male feminists and ride off to the sunset with them?
Well, first of all,
there's someone for everybody. No?
Yes, feminism allows for that. Feminism is about women being who they want and doing what they want and having the choice to do what you want. So if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, I have no business coming up in your face saying, go and get a job, because that's not feminism to me.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, would you have anything against the man who wishes to maintain his own personal traditional role, while seeking out women who will fulfill their traditional roles?
Yeah, now let me tell you what men do. Men find us when we're independent. Men find us when we are strong-willed. And after we get married, that is when the noise begins. You can't go out at night. You can't do this. Or you can't get this job. I've seen it so many times. I had a friend who married, and when she got a promotion that was significant, he said no. But he's supposed to be a modern man. These modern men are modern until they put the ring on your finger.
And yes, I agree.
Yeah. And also when they get you pregnant. That's like a deal breaker right there. It's the first thing they want to do because they know you're not going to move. So maybe you can explain it to me. I don't understand why men find us the way we are and then try to just destroy and isolate us and keep us down.
I think what you're saying is true. And indeed, it is many of the self-professed progressive men who end up being these tyrants in the home once you start dating them or start marrying them. And I feel like that has been because there's not been an opportunity for an open and honest conversation. So I lean more on the side of the traditionalist when it comes to gender roles, but freely chosen traditionalism. So for example, I will say if I to have a woman in my life, this is how I expect her to be, and this is how I shall be. It is her choice whether or not it interests her to be in such an arrangement, and if not, I don't need to bother her.
She has the agency to walk away.
Exactly. But the problem has been in expressing these views. I've been met with a lot of criticism from those who claim to be progressive and modern men, who will call me old school, archaic, misogynist. I need to move on with the times, and then they will be cheered on by the independent women in the same comments thread or whatever forum we're having this conversation. And the catch is that they're only doing that because they're virtue signaling to the independent women. They're trying to seem as though they are in tandem with your aspirations just so that they can curry favor with you and possibly date you. So they deceive you into thinking that they are feminist men or allies or all this kind of stuff. And I've seen even feminist writers warn fellow women about these allies, that these guys are wolves in sheep's clothing. I mean, they'll sing the tune, they'll repeat the platitudes, but once you peel one layer off, these guys are sometimes quite nasty. Whereas us who are more openly brazen in our expression of traditional views, we are at least consistent. You know what you're dealing with, there's no pretense, and so no one's disappointed with us. Whereas you will likely be disappointed with a man who presented himself as progressive and turned out not to be.
Very, very much so. I'd be very upset.
So how about we encourage men to be honest about what they want? Because I take the view that a lot of men hide from their human nature. They call it toxic masculinity. God forbid you want a woman to cook for you. That's toxic masculinity, apparently. So you can't even ask. But the thing is, so such men enter into relationships and marriages, and they just find themselves fighting that inner instincts that they have to want to dominate, because the man is in their nature. And I don't mean dominate in a dominate like sort of more be the person in charge. The instinct to want to be in charge of a situation and have some control over it and to guide an institution. That instinct rears its head no matter how progressive you think you are. And to the feminist woman that you take on as a wife, she's the one who's going to have to deal with that reality check when that monster rears its head, and she'll often be surprised.
Actually, most of them just choose to be single mothers. Yes. What was it I wanted to talk about? You were talking about, what was it you were saying? About
the traditional roles?
Traditional roles? No, it wasn't traditional roles.
The male allies and the male feminists.
Male feminists. I'm sorry, I've forgotten it. It was so important come back. And it's just left my head.
It'll come back. But I think the solution is to just have more conversations and to be open.
I've remembered what I wanted to say. You talked about nature.
Oh, yes.
Yes, but there is also an element of nurturing.
Yes.
Why, as a grown man, do you need to have a mop and a cooker and call it a wife? Where are your life skills? We live in a time nowadays where some roles should not even be discussed anymore. Like, oh, this is your role and as a woman, and this is your role as a man. Because the woman is also making money, and even if she's not making money, she's working really, really hard being a stay-at-home mom or, running the house. She's a businesswoman, So I don't believe anymore in roles. I think that people should now start embracing partnerships, and like you said, sit down and decide on the table what it's going to be like.
I think, and that is how it should be.
Yeah.
It's just you need to also consider that when we speak of roles, a lot of these are not too unrelated to our nature. So, for example, women are famous for being the nurturers, right? For being primary caregivers of babies and so forth. So they tend to be more adept at the nurturing process. Whereas for men, the provision process comes more naturally to us. It is a role we are more comfortable with. This doesn't mean a woman cannot provide, but they tend not to want to be the ones to provide, especially to a man. I've dated women, with money, and you can just sense the vibe in the air when they're the one paying the bill. Somehow
they're not happy.
Somehow they're not. She makes a lot of money, but if it's now like the third date and she's the one pulling out the card to pay, she's looking at you like, dude. And there are times where they'll even rebel. No, you pay. I don't want to pay. I'm tired of paying. Why am I? And this is like, this is just the second time you're paying for us as we go out, but it's already too much. Whereas if it were me and I was in a relationship with a woman, I would expect to be the one to pay always. Do you see what I mean? And the reason I was comfortable with her pulling out her card to pay the bill was, at least for the first date, I guess she was trying to show that, hey, you can't. I'm an independent woman. I'm not one of your floozies. So, hey, I don't want you to pay the bill and think you control me. So, hey, waiter, bring me the machine. Okay, so she paid. All right. Second date, the waiter brought the machine. I sat back, waited for her to pay, and she's like, hey.
Well, why didn't you have a conversation with her about it?
So my point is, she can do it, but it just doesn't come naturally. And not just that, as men, we feel happy to provide for women. It actually, for us, it makes us feel fulfilled to do it. We feel good about ourselves when we can provide something materially for a woman. So I think that is why people naturally gravitate towards those roles. And I don't think these are hard rules, but I don't think it's etched in stone. I just think we're naturally pulled in these directions.
Yes, these roles are the norm. They are the norm. That's just a fact. But there is also room for evolution. And evolution has happened and is happening. There was a time when it was not the norm for a woman to work. There was a time when it wasn't the norm for a woman to vote. But nowadays, many things that were no longer the norm are the norm. But men do not want to adjust to the norms, and that is a problem. They talk and we think we're in the 14th century when they start speaking.
Well, because what you are calling the norms, or the norms that supposedly we have transformed into the prevailing norms, maybe go against people's more basic instincts. And so that is why there is a resistance and a reaction.
So why don't you think that it goes against a woman's basic instinct to pay the bills or to be a single mother, and the man doesn't do anything?
Maybe you can tell me, would women want to be single mothers?
I can't tell you that. If I was a single mother, I'd be able to answer it.
Okay, some do and some don't.
Some do, some don't.
Most don't.
But they're kind of left choiceless, because one of the wonderful things, in quote, that men can do is stroll away and leave you there with the children.
Most are you aware that most divorces are initiated by women?
Yes, they are. And it's 70 to 80% on average. And if she has a university degree, the number goes up to 90% of divorces will be initiated. So, contrary to assumptions, women are the ones that walk away from relationships. Now, I'm not saying they don't have good reasons for walking away, but they tend to be the ones that exit the relationships. And when it comes to being pregnant, there is also the element of choice of who to be pregnant with. And with all of the available birth control methods that women have, I would have to assume that if a woman gets pregnant, it's because she wanted to. Oh, come on, James. Can't you buy condoms?
Sorry?
Can't you buy condoms?
I can't.
Why is it my job to prevent it? Both of us should work together.
What I'm saying is, if the sexual act has taken place, you see, because when we talk of reproductive rights, at least for the woman, it normally happens usually happens after the sexual act has taken place. Like after sex has been had, all right, what are my options? And some women would like the option to terminate a pregnancy should it arise.
Yeah.
But there are also other interventions such as Plan B, morning after pill, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So a woman has at her disposal a number of things she can do to prevent a pregnancy from occurring.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
A man has a few things he can do to prevent himself from impregnating a woman.
Except that men don't face the consequences, so they don't care.
But once the sex act has occurred,
yes,
should there not be a point in all of this where a woman is asking herself, would I like to conceive a man with this child? Is he an ideal person for me to conceive with? Or do you feel this is a conversation she need not have with herself?
Okay, I'm not an expert on this, so I will just say that by the time a woman has a man's child, he probably led her to believe that he was something special, that they actually had something special going on. You know, like either I'm going to marry you, or you're my, wifey, or you're my bestie or something, because women aren't going to go around having unprotected sex with 17 different men, not knowing who the father is, for example.
Okay, so my theory on that is this. It's that
they need a bond.
You never see. Can I tell you what I rarely ever see?
What?
I rarely ever see a single mom whose baby daddy was a nice guy. I see a single mom. I meet single moms, and when I say single mom, I mean like a mom who has a baby daddy that is absolutely not involved.
Mm-hmm.
He's your stereotypical deadbeat who's not interested in the child, doesn't care for it, doesn't support it, zero.
Yes.
Those scenarios tend to have arisen in cases where she had a child with a man who she knew was not ideal. She had a child with a bad boy, usually in an attempt to keep him or to obtain a commitment from him. It happens.
I love that phrase.
It happens.
I love that phrase. Let's trap a man with pregnancy.
It does happen.
That's a very expensive way to trap a dude.
It's not entirely rational, but it happens.
That's a lifetime way to trap a dude. Like,
tell them.
I don't.
Tell them about it.
I don't believe that.
Look at Ciara, who I'm sure, well, some might say she's a champion for independent women, even, but she had her first child with a man who had, by that time, at least 4 or 5 other baby mamas. At the time Ciara conceived her first child with Future, there were at least 5 other baby mamas.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked at the situation and said, yes, I wish to conceive with this man. And she did. Are you saying she should not have exercised some...
I'm saying she has agency to do what she
caution,
wants.
Exactly. And so in exercising her agency, she decided that she would have a child with a man that was not befitting of the role of father. Do you see? And this is where I would advise you to have that discussion with ladies. Sit them down and say, look, a lot of guys out there are dogs. Can you just not have their babies, please? You're making us look bad.
I feel like you're turning this story into another direction. I want to say that men should be talking to boys.
So we can speak to each other, and at least in Western...
Men should be speaking to boys.
You see, at least in Western countries, the laws shall punish a man who acts carelessly in that regard.
Yes.
Child support is a serious issue. Men are right now languishing in jail in America for failure to pay child support. So so it is not something, at least in the West, you can take lightly. Mm-hmm. Here, it still is the case. I don't know why. And yet the laws, even the laws as they currently are written, grant women the chance to pursue financial financial support from a father of her child. But I just don't know why women don't exercise that option.
Because women do not have money. The way the society is set up, I'm not an expert in that, but for some reason, men have access to the money, and women
for some reason,
and women, I mean, I worked somewhere where a guy was being paid half more. I was being paid half what a man was being paid.
Why did you accept the job?
Did I know until we left the company and discussed our paychecks?
And then when you found out, what did you do?
When I found out, of course, I cried a bit.
You know that for me, my rebuttal to the pay gap argument is point me to any football team and there will be one player making 10 times the money of the least paid player. And yet they're all playing the same soccer game.
Some
and they're all men.
Some feet are more special than others.
Exactly. No, my point is, not even men get paid equally for the same job. There's a lot of other factors that determine one's output, productivity, how long they've served in that career, the experience they bring, the hours they work, or maybe the boss just likes them more. There's so many, or the person, and this is an important one, negotiating power. If someone walks into my office and says, if you don't double my salary, I'm leaving. That's it, boss. Now, that forces me in a position of asking myself, okay, is the person valuable enough for me to want to risk losing them? And if the answer is no, or if the answer is if the answer is yes, they're valuable to me, I can't risk losing them, then I will probably double the salary. But if I don't care if they stayed or left, I might just let them go. Women rarely are that aggressive in their bid to negotiate for higher pay and will tend to settle for less pay out of fear of losing the job they currently have. And it's not an irrational fear. I mean, if you're comfortable somewhere, and typically women will be in relationships or marriages anyway, so they may not be as pressed for income the way a man might be. But it's a long-winded conversation. And thankfully, you're going to be here with us for a little bit longer, and we're going to continue from where we left off. When we return, I'm here with Lindsey Kukunda, journalist, human rights and animal rights activist, and we're here to talk about a lot of things. We're talking about gender relations, women's rights, and also the recently passed anti-homosexuality bill. Lindsey seems to think Uganda has instead backfired by trying to push this anti-homosexual agenda. I'll ask her to expound on those views. That's coming up next on The Fatboy Show.